Okay, Jai Jagannath, and we have this. Now I'm going to take. Okay, so Jai Jagannath, today we are discussing about the creation of the universe as per Bhagavata Purana. If you check my abridged edition of the Bhagavata Purana in English, we have page 8 in the questions of the sages. The Sonaka Rishi is talking to not the Sonaka Rishi who wants to become the Prime Minister of United Kingdom. This is the real Sonaka Rishi. He's talking with the rishis in Misharanya. Oh, we have someone who joined the Kishore. Jai Jagannath, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Okay,
Namaste.
namaste. So we are discussing the Bhagavata Purana, the creation of the universe according to the Bhagavata Purana. We have in my summary edition of Bhagavata Purana in English, page 8. We have Sonaka Rishi, who is talking to the rishis in Naimisharanya, and the text goes like this. Since the beginning of creation, the Supreme Lord manifests in various forms to bless the living beings. The first incarnation, called Purushavatara or Mahavishnu, generates all the universes and penetrates within each one of them. So we have the description of the avatars, and then we continue with the inspiration of Vyasa to compose the Bhagavata, and we can go on. Then the narration of the Bhagavata begins right after the battle of Kurukshetra. Then we come to the point of where the rishis are listening, and Sonaka relates the discussion between Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit, who were sitting in another assembly previously held on the bank of the Ganges, when Maharaj Parikshit retired from the kingship. So then Sukadeva came, and Parikshit asked him what a human being should do, especially when he's about to die. So Sukadeva starts talking about the practice of Ashtanga Yoga. And the interesting thing is that Sukadeva is talking of Ashtanga Yoga and very briefly discussing about asana and pranayama, and says that the purpose of asana and pranayama is to control the mind, senses, and intelligence. Means pratyahara, dharana, dhyana. And the dhyana or meditation, it says, Shukadeva clearly says, in order to apply them to the contemplation of the universal form of the Lord, the cosmic manifestation called Virat Rupa, in the following way. So this is a description of the universe as the body of the Virat Rupa, the body of the Virat Purusha. you have heard the Purusha Sukta.
I have heard about it, but I have not heard the Purusha
Okay,
Sukta itself.
so about the Purusha Sukta, the Purusha Sukta is one of the most important hymns in the Veda Samhitas, and it is describing God as the form of the universe, or better, the universe as the form of God. And this Virat Purusha, the Purusha Sukta comes from the Virat Purusha. So, the Purusha, who is God in the form of the universe, is also God in the form of human society. So, we have to understand that when we have descriptions of creation in the Vedic science, it's very symbolic. You know, we shouldn't think in a Abrahamic, perspective of, God as physically, picking up some mud and shaping the little clay doll and calling it a human being Adam. That is, it's very childish. So here, at page 17, we find this is the teaching. Okay, Parikshit was very eager to hear more about Lord Vishnu, and he prayed Sukadeva to talk to him about the activities of Vishnu in this world. Sukadeva immersed himself in meditation on the Lord, offering him his respect before answering the questions. God is the supreme soul of all souls, a personification of the Vedas, worshipped by all who are free from false identification. This is the teaching that Brahma, the first living being and creator of the universe, offered his son Narada, who had asked him how the material world is created and preserved and who controls it. So, now we come to the point of how the universe is created. So, we go from page 17 and onwards. So, maybe you want to, note it down and read it carefully also by yourself.
Okay.
So we can read it quickly now, and you can stop me if there is anything that doesn't make sense, you don't understand, or you have questions, whatever. Okay, Brahma replied that his work of creation is subordinate and subsequent to the primary creation that directly emanates from Vishnu in the form of his radiance, which is the Brahman. Okay. The original Purusha is called Mahavishnu or Karanarnavasai Vishnu. Karana, Arnava. Karana are the causes. Arnava is the ocean. Sai means someone who is reclining on, lying down. So Vishnu, because he remains reclining on the causal ocean. The causal ocean is not, like, regular water, like you see in the TV serials. The causal ocean is a Mahatattva of non-differentiation, great reality that contains the germ of all existence. So, the problem, I believe, is that all these mythological, so-called mythological, entertainment productions have messed up a lot with the brain of people. Because, of course, they want to show, something that people can, they can show people. Especially before the computer-generated imagery was invented. So, they have this, water, this sea, they have this sand, a beach, and, maybe some trees or whatever. But that's not the that's not the causal ocean. That is not the Karanardhava. That is the beach. Okay. So the causal ocean is a Mahatattva or non-differentiation great reality that contains the germs of all existence. Then time comes into existence. Who is time? Time is Adiparashakti, Mother Kali. Kali means time. Without the Shakti, there is no manifestation of duality, there is no Rupa. You follow this, you understand this?
Yes.
So, why there is no manifestation of Rupa? Because there is no separation. The Mahatattva is the Brahman. Brahman is non-manifested by definition. The Mahatattva is the material world non-manifested. Just like Brahman, material world is also Brahman, especially when it's not manifested. Then Mother Kali manifests, and time comes into existence. Time is the very definition of duality. It's a bridge between the Brahman and the world of duality, because time is a continuum, but time gives a beginning and an end to things. So it's a continuum, but it goes in a cycle. So there is a beginning and an end. It's infinite. It's non-ending because the cycle never ends. But the particular objects within the cycle of time, they all have a beginning and an end, including the avatars. This is interesting. So, after time comes into existence, then the three gunas or quality of matter come into existence. That is sattva, rajas, and tamas. The movement of these qualities creates material identification, because when something starts to manifest, it has to manifest in rajas. Rajas is the creation. You know, Brahma is the guna avatara of rajas, because he creates, he manifests. Okay, so when something is created or manifested, then you have the rajas. Sattva or goodness is Vishnu because it's always existing. That is why he is called the guna avatara of preservation. And Mahadev is a destroyer, but not, the problem is that people in the Abrahamic mentality, they think the destroyer is a bad thing. But destruction is not a bad thing. It's a purification that allows us to progress. When you have something old that has become old because of the action of time, it falls apart, and the fact that it falls apart, it becomes destroyed, gives us the opportunity to start something new and better. So what is actually destroyed by Shiva is just the contamination. It's just the garbage. When something is old and it's not working anymore, what do? We throw it away, we destroy it. Right? No, nobody thinks that we are evil because we are destroying something that is broken and it's not going to work anymore. Okay, so this is the connection with tamas means that tamas is something that is not working anymore. It's a lack of action. It's a lack of function. So people, foolish people think that Shiva is ignorant, is in tamas, but that is offensive. That is offensive. I read some ISKCON guy was writing, Shiva is a paltry demigod in the mode of ignorance. Ew, that's very offensive. It's because someone is in charge of a dairy farm. You cannot call him a cow. Or if someone is in charge of the jail, you cannot call him a criminal because he's in the jail. And the director of a dairy farm, he makes milk, but he's not a cow. You understand? So in the same way, Shiva Mahadev controls the tamas, is not subjected to tamas, because Shiva is none other than Vishnu. So how can Vishnu be subjected to tamas? In the same way, Vishnu is not subjected to sattva, because we know that Vishnu is transcendental. So Vishnu is not subject even to sattva. He controls, he represents sattva. Just like the milkman is representing the cows. Because he's selling the milk. He's producing the milk, but he's not the cow. So the movement of these qualities, I forgot one else. Okay, sometimes we have some typos in my books. Sorry, I apologize. The movement of these qualities creates material identification, which means in the species, in forms, in different functions, different qualities. Sometimes in sattva, rajas, or tamas, or a mixture of them. More likely a mix of all the gunas. Okay. In the necessity to act on the manifested level, which means swadharma. If you read Bhagavad Gita, you see the swadharma of the Brahmana is determined by the guna, blah blah blah, guna and karmas, vibhagasa, whatever. Which in turn produce the subtle and gross material elements. So first comes the idea. The ontological idea that was also somehow grasped by the philosophers of ancient Greece. They got this idea that there is before the manifestation, the physical manifestation, you have the subtle manifestation of the ontological reality. So space, the gaseous element, in which it then produces the subtle and gross material elements. So the subtle elements are identification, intelligence, and mind. Okay. And then we have the 5 gross elements, which are space, air or gases, water, or all liquid elements, earth, which are all the solid elements. Then the archetypes or personifications of the various universal manifestations appear in the form of the various devas. Very recently, they asked me a question on Quora, and they asked me, what is the proof, the evidence that the gods exist? Okay, then I answered, the evidence that the gods exist is the fact that the fire burns, the wind blows, and the earth is solid. That's the evidence, because the devas are the personification of that consciousness that manifests the ontological, subtle idea of the elements of the universe. Are you following?
Yes.
It's not
But
easy.
I have one question
Yeah,
here. This
please.
personification, what we exactly mean? As in, is it
Yes, exactly, exactly. Now, our okay. Let's see. Let's examine the human being as a person. Okay. Usually, on the material level, we identify a human being by the body. We see someone walking in the street and we say, hey, that's a human being, right? That's a person.
yes?
Okay. So what we are seeing, what we see is earth, water, air, fire, and akash. We don't see the soul. We don't see the atma. We don't even see the mind or the intelligence or the ahankar. We can just see the objects of the senses because our senses are material senses made of the five gross elements. So our material senses can only see material objects. Yet, we know that a human being is more than the body. Because when someone dies, the body is still there. But everybody says, he is gone. So, that's a natural understanding. It's not that someone has to teach you. It's not some particular philosophy that tells you that that person has gone. It's a natural knowledge that, Sanatana Dharma, Sanatana Vidya, Atma Vidya, that is telling us that person is not there anymore. This is like an empty shell. And in fact, the empty shell starts rotting away, and you see, the person is not there anymore. So who is the person? So the person is sometimes appearing to you in a dream or something, in the form of ghost. And the ghost has a subtle body that is made of prana, manas, and buddhi and ahankar, which are the body in which the Atman is still traveling. This is for all human beings. Now, we can understand that this subtle body is a form of consciousness. Okay, so we know that the material body is a condensation of energy. The matter is a condensation of energy, and the spirit is energy. So the gross material body is a condensation of subtle and spiritual energy. Now, the subtle energy cannot be perceived by our gross senses, but can be perceived by our subtle senses. Because the subtle body is practically like the blueprint for the gross body. Are you following?
Yes.
Excellent. So what happens is that that we can call all this as a manifestation of consciousness. Now, the devas they also have a body that is a manifestation of consciousness, but at a much higher level than we have, ordinary human beings. Now, even an ordinary human being, we know from the Yoga Shastra that even an ordinary human being can develop the Yoga Siddhis, which appear to be like divine powers. You know, like you can walk on the water, you can multiply some, pieces of bread. It's not a big thing. Anybody can do. You don't need to be God to do that. You know, for even still recently there have been, yogis in India who were able to do that. You know. The point is that people have a very gross perception of reality. So whenever they don't understand something, they say it's God. It's divine, it's God. But that's not exactly true. That's not exactly true. So the devas are the personification of very high levels of consciousness. So the higher the level of consciousness, the less we are as jivatmas, the less we are limited by time, space, and individuality. Material existence is characterized by limitations of time, space, and individuality. The higher you go in a level of consciousness, the less you are tied up by these limits. For example, a good yogi, a real yogi, can not only develop the Laghima Siddhi and the Prapti Siddhi and Mahima Siddhi, whatever, the tradition, but he can also manifest more forms of himself. This is called bilocation. Bilocation, and there have been instances of people were considered ordinary, but obviously they had developed this yoga, sadhana in previous lifetimes. So a regular yogi, an average yogi, can manifest, I think, up to 8 forms of himself. Okay, this is an ordinary human being, just knowing and applying the science of yoga. Now, the devas are much higher as level of consciousness. So they can transcend time, space, and individuality more. Like the greatest devas, like for example Agni. Agni is everywhere. So he is still a person, but it doesn't have the limitations that we have as, ordinary human beings with a gross material body. Agni has a gross material body in the form of fire. But that can be manifested or non-manifested freely every time he wants. So a yogi can manifest a body or non-manifest a body anytime he wants. So you see where it goes.
Yes.
So it's, most people think that the devas are just, very powerful beings, maybe aliens, who knows, but who have a mechanical power. Most people who are trying to understand these ancient aliens, and, the devas, the gods were aliens, and this and that, they still have a very mechanical, Newtonian idea of science. and the maximum extent of their, imagination, scientific imagination, is an atomic bomb. But an atomic bomb, is still, largely Newtonian, because it's a chemical reaction of chemical elements that are very high in the table of elements, so they become radioactive, and they can cause the release of much bigger, much more energy than usual previous bombs. But it's still a bomb. The dynamite is not much different. Because the dynamite also explodes, and the matter of dynamite releases a lot of energy. So the idea of atomic bomb is still, largely Newtonian, because it's a chemical process. In the meantime, in the last 70 years, the quantum physics, the particle physics, has gone much, done much more than that. But still, the people who speak of the gods as aliens, they're still stuck, in the popular mentality of science that can only reach up to understand the atomic bomb. They don't go further than that. You following?
Yes.
Now, why modern physicists still, 30, 40 years ago, they started to, express a lot of respect for the for Vedic philosophy, because they could understand that there is much more. There is much more, They started to understand the concept of non-manifested, the concept of Brahman, all these concepts. Unfortunately, in India, Hindus have gone the other way, due to the mythological, series. You understand?
Yes.
So, to actually understand what the devas are, we need to overcome the gross identification with the gross material body for ourselves first. Because if we keep thinking that we are the gross material body, we can never understand the devas. What to speak of Bhagavan? What to speak of God? So that is why, remember in my article about the demigods and devas, I was quoting that verse from the, which was saying that the devas actually see these material identified people as pashu, animals, because the animal is also identifying with material body. There's no difference. Because we are not separated from the devas. We are never separated from the devas. We're never separated from God. And this is the problem with the asuras. Because the asuras, in spite of having a lot of mechanical knowledge, they are still confused by the fundamental fundamental factor of Dvaita, because they are called daityas because they're the children of deity, and deity means a separation. And the main characteristic of the asuras is that they have this concept of duality by which they believe that they can get benefit for themselves by causing damage to others. That's stupid because it's typically asuric. It's not true. We are all connected. This is why the devas are actually protecting the universe. We find in the 3rd chapter of Gita, we see Krishna, speaking of karma yoga, is describing how the human beings and the devas need to cooperate together. Because they are together. They are one, you know. So we recognize the devas and devas recognize us. We are conscious of the devas and the devas are conscious of us. We are all limbs of the same body. We are all cells in the same body, and the same body is the body of the Virat Purush, is the body of God. Is that clear?
Yes.
So,
But still,
yeah.
like original question on the personification,
Yes.
when we discuss lot of how devas, what devas are, they are not limited. So when we say personification, it somehow, because of maybe my understanding of personality is okay with some gross body or something like that. So isn't
Exactly.
it? So what should be the correct understanding? Like what personification means?
Personification means that the person is not limited by the gross material body. As I was making the example first, the ghost is a person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have a material body, gross material body. So a person, fundamentally, the Sanskrit word for person is Purusha. Now the problem is that due to a lot of, Kali Yuga degradation, the word Purusha has come to mean in Indian languages man, physically, someone who has a male body, a human being with a male body. But that's not that's not correct, because the Purusha is just consciousness. A human being in a female body is not Prakriti. It's also Purusha. Because we are, we are intrinsically, ontological, all Purusha. We are all Purusha and we are all Prakriti. This is how we can take birth as men or women, as well as animals or plants or whatever. But why? Because we have the nature of Purusha. Otherwise, if we don't have, if the nature of Purusha is only for the male human beings, then that means that the male human being can never take birth as a woman. Because if the nature is Purusha, it has to remain a Purusha, right?
Yes.
And this is, I think that the plan of the universe is to, seriously slap people in the face with this surge in homosexuality. Because what do you mean Purusha? who is this guy? Is it Purusha or not? It doesn't. We have a transsexual persons. They were born a man and they want to become women. Where is the idea of Purusha there? It becomes a joke. Unless we actually understand the real meaning of Purusha, that doesn't refer to the gross material body, but to the quality of consciousness. Purusha means consciousness. Consciousness manifests everything. Brahman is Sat Chit Ananda. Sat, existence, Chit, consciousness, Ananda, happiness. This is the nature of existence, is happiness and awareness, consciousness. You cannot separate the three. Satchitananda is one. So the personification, the devas are persons, just like we are persons. But not on the gross material level. Because the body of the devas is even more, spiritual, more liberated than the body of the siddhas. The siddhas are one category of upadevas. You heard about the siddhas?
Yeah, I've heard, but
Yeah,
like,
siddhas, charanas, vidyadharas, kinnaras, gandharvas. These are all upadevas, means they're not on the level of devas. And the siddha is someone who has completely mastered the science of yoga, which means he can, he has all the perfections of the siddhis of yoga. So it can manifest and unmanifest, same as the devas. So, there are lots of stories in the Puranas and everything. We have to see these stories as lila. Just like the stories of the Ramayana, for example. We have the story of the Ramayana, and we see that Sri Ram is born, going around and fighting and this and that. The devas do the same, but the devas are also, playing a role. Still, the identity is there. Like, usually I make these two examples, the example of a molecule of water in the ocean. It's still two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. It doesn't matter how merged it is in the ocean, or in our body, or in the Coca-Cola, whatever. It's still two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. You cannot change that. That is the individuality of the jiva. And it's also the individuality of the personality of the devas, and even the personality of God. Still a person. God is still a person. It's a person that is not limited by the gross material body. Because the more evolved you are, the less limited you are. So God is by definition, the supreme being, the supreme existence. So it's a most evolved, if we can say. God doesn't evolve because it doesn't change. But the point is that not even the Atman is changed. The evolution of the soul is not a change, because Gita is saying very clearly, the Atman never changes. So the evolution, when we speak of evolution of a soul, we are actually speaking of evolution of the consciousness. We become more conscious. God is the most conscious because it's a consciousness itself. I don't know if it's clear.
yeah, somehow clear. but they need to
Yeah, it's difficult.
contemplate more.
Exactly. So we shouldn't put too much stuff on the plate. Okay, because otherwise.
But coming back to this
Yes,
original,
please.
question, and I
Yes.
think the next line in that paragraph also says about that, from the inconceivable and transcendental body of Mahavishnu,
Yes.
universes emanate like innumerable bubbles. So when, we say that Vishnu is not material, right?
Yes.
So, and without the Shakti, he doesn't have a form.
Yes.
So how come this body and emanation? How to understand this?
Okay, we have seen that time comes into existence. Okay, time is the Adi Parashakti. So when we speak of the emanation of the universes, this requires the action of time. Because it's a cycle of breathing. The universes are emanated, they develop, they have their whole, life, and then they are withdrawn again. This is time. It's a lot of time, One breathing cycle of Mahavishnu is one full life of Brahma, which is 100 of his years. One day of Brahma is 1,000 cycles of Mahayugas. So it's like, oh, okay, that's a lot of time. Okay. So the
No, but
point.
from the emanation
Yeah.
perspective, if Mahavishnu doesn't have a form,
No. Who said that Mahavishnu doesn't have a form? I didn't say that.
no, without Shakti, you said he doesn't have a
Yeah,
form,
but
right?
that's what I'm saying. Mahavishnu becomes manifested through Shakti.
Okay. So what is before that? Before that point,
Oh,
should we call
before
it?
that is Narayana Paravyaktat. Narayana is not manifested. Brahman is not manifested. Supreme Brahman is not manifested. It's
Okay.
like Krishna shows Arjuna the universal form, and I liked it very much. The fact that the Gita says Arjuna saw in the entire universe in one point. In that point, that place.
Mhm.
Wow, how can you do that? How can you do that? Even if you have a vision, the Mahabharata TV serials cannot show that.
Yeah.
Because it's still not one place. It's it's a projection that opens up, and it has a size.
Mhm.
The non-manifested doesn't have a size. Indian rishis have brought to the world the idea of infinite, and the idea of infinitesimal, from which geometry comes. A point has no dimensions. I remember when I was going to school, that was like, yeah, wow, that's a good thing to think about. In geometry, a point has no dimensions. What does that mean? No dimension means, it doesn't exist. It's infinitesimal, and at the same time it's infinite. So we have the Bindu Upanishad. The Bindu in Tantra refers to the point. Bindu means point. So the Bindu is the non-manifested point of it that includes all existence. That's what Arjuna saw, Arjuna perceived. It's a infinitesimal. In one point, in one place, you could see the entire, reality. this is before the manifestation of the transcendental body of Mahavishnu. Transcendental means that it is not material. Still it's a form. And in order to have a form, you have to go through Shakti, Maya. The point is that we have Maya or Shakti, the Adipara Shakti, is at the same time Mahamaya and Yogamaya. Mahamaya is the illusion of thinking that we can be separate from God in the sense that the Asuras think. But the Yogamaya is a sense that we can be distinct from God in the sense that devotees and bhaktas and the suras see things. It's a huge difference. It looks like the same, it's all Maya. Yeah, right, yeah, but what Maya? Like Krishna in Gita, when he says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. He said, Atma Maya. Still he's talking about Maya, isn't it? Atma Maya, Maya, well, is Maya. So Maya means energy. It can mean magic, illusion, and everything. Also, you see sometimes with a long A, sometimes with a short A. But it is connected, the concept is the same. So the transcendental body of Mahavishnu is manifested by Yogamaya, not by Mahamaya. It's the Atma Maya. Mahavishnu is still the Purusha, right? So it's what Krishna is talking about in Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. Because, the Brahman, the Param Brahman manifests as avatar through its own Maya, Atma Maya. And Mahavishnu is one avatar. It's a big avatar, It's the first of the Purusha avatars. So the form of Vishnu that we are worshipping in the temple is an avatar of Vishnu. It's not it's not a non-manifested Vishnu that doesn't have a form. Otherwise, you cannot have an image. If there is no form, how can you have an image? Right? So we can connect to Vishnu through the Shakti, the Bhakti Shakti. The Ladini Shakti, whatever you want to call it. Bhakti Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Chit Shakti, whatever. It's Shakti. Shakti is one. Then depending on our approach, it can, we get different results. We get the result of Mahamaya, we get the result of Yogamaya, but we still have the result of Maya. That's why when people ask me, if I am a Mayavadi, I'm saying I'm a Yoga Mayavadi. Because, Yoga Maya is the thing, Chaitanya was a Yoga Mayavadi. Totally focused on Yoga Maya. Jagannath Subhadra is Yoga Maya. Everybody knows that. If you remove Subhadra from the triad of Jagannath and Balabhadra, they don't have any form. They don't have a relationship. They don't have personality. the Param Brahman, the non-manifested Param Brahman, the Avyakta Param Brahman, is unthinkable. Achintya. Avyakta means achintya. Adhokshaja. We cannot be understood in the non-manifested form, not even through bhakti, because bhakti is Shakti. When you have bhakti, when Krishna says, you can approach me as I am only through bhakti, that means bhakti Shakti. Vladini Shakti, right?
Yes.
This is the Siddhanta of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. You can only approach Krishna through Radha. No point, Radha is still Maya. One form of Maya that is very internal. Shakti and Maya are synonymous. So you understand a little better?
Yes.
Excellent. Any other question about this specific point?
Yeah, on this creation theory through Bhagavatam, as in I think other Puranas, maybe Shiv Purana might explain it
Yes, I
a
am
little
sure.
different. So
Yes.
is it that on the concept of maybe this understanding of Brahman, Parabrahman, Avyakta and all, it would be same, just that form we call as Mahavishnu, they might call it as Shiva, and is it like that or?
No. They call it Sadashiva.
Sadashiva.
They don't call it Shiva. They call it Sadashiva. Okay. Definitely. That because it's the same. You go to the Vishnu Sahasranam and count how many names of Shiva are there. So why they're called Vishnu Sahasranam? There is names of Shiva. Because Shiva and Vishnu are the same. And but it's exactly the same process. In the perspective of the Shaiva Puranas, this Param Brahman is called Sadashiva, the Avyakta Shiva, whatever, but it's the same like the Avyakta Vishnu, because it's not manifested, it doesn't have a form, it doesn't have a name. So what's the point in putting labels with names on something that doesn't have any name? Like, what are you talking about? It's sectarianism is a poison.
Yes.
And sectarianism only comes from the Abrahamic ideologies. There was no sectarianism before that. The only sectarianism that circulated in Hindu Deism, in the Indian, let's say, the Indian culture, was body identification. But, as everybody knew that body identification was the root of all ignorance. Abrahamic ideologies established that body identification is the supreme reality. And sectarianism is the only way to please God. So, you see, it's exactly the opposite of what it should be. It cannot be reconciled. There is no, these people who say that all religions are the same, they're ignorant in all religions, because they don't know what any religion is saying. So they're just talking. Blah, blah, blah.
Or maybe they've only read Hinduism and they think that we have to see everybody with equal vision, so they might have
No. Sorry, they didn't even read Hinduism. They don't know what Hinduism is. I'm sorry. If you go and see even people who claim to be teaching Bhagavad Gita, you go now, today I went into LinkedIn, I had some exchange with one lady who's giving course on Bhagavad Gita, and I had a discussion. Now I saw she replied to my reply. I'm going to see what she said. But the point is that people don't really understand. They come out with weird ideas. Then you ask them, which verse is that? They have no idea. They have no idea. They repeat their own, fantasy or the second-hand fantasy, and they attribute it to Gita, This is why I don't like this mythology, entertainment productions, because they make Krishna say all sorts of stupid things. And people actually say, oh, Krishna ji said, Dalit sometimes is coming up with, oh, in Mahabharata, Krishna ji said that, blah, blah. No, no, he didn't. Because this. But, people, they think they know Hinduism. But we need to verify. Who's verifying? Not many people. Not many people are verifying. Like, these very nice people like Arunji and others are studying the Upanishads, but what version of the Upanishads? I don't know, because in that verse that he was quoting, he was talking about the right eye, but in the original text there is no mention of right eye or left eye, just talking about the eye. So, what are they reading? What are they studying? That's why I wanted to be as clear as possible in the study of Bhagavad Gita, for example. And I presented that. And I am sure that also Bhaktivedanta Swami wanted that. Because otherwise he wouldn't have put the Sanskrit Devanagari and word for word and, all the quotes and also at some point I remember I was impressed by the fact, I was translating the Bhagavata Purana for the ISKCON, and I saw that, especially starting from the 4th and 5th canto, Prabhupada is quoting very long Sanskrit verses without giving any translation. And that, struck me, say, well, what does that mean? That means he wants us to study Sanskrit. Because why is quoting, 4 lines of a verse, for one entire para, from paragraph from some Sanskrit text and not giving the translation? That is the reason. Of course, in these times, Prabhupada needed to present things according to Desha Kalapatra. That is definitely, was very, very required. But doesn't mean like Bhaktivinoda was saying very, very clearly in his Bhagavatam lecture. I don't know if I sent you the text, the Bhagavatam lecture by Bhaktivinoda.
Yeah, you said.
Yeah.
I read some part of it. It is very huge, 25 pages. Right?
Well, in the beginning, especially in the beginning, is interesting.
Yeah, beginning part I read, which I think you
remember
intend
that Bhaktivinoda says that the real
we have to go to the route what the previous acharyas.
Exactly. The real student is not putting the knowledge in a jail cell.
Mm-hmm.
And nailing to the wall because this is what we need to follow. No. It understands the meaning and it expands in the meaning. But after getting a consistent and solid realization. Because if we are still identified with the gross material body, we cannot expand on anything. You know, we need to have a darshana. We need, like the rishis. What is the characteristic of the rishis? That they see darshana. They are seeing the reality as it is, and this is why we need to study all the Shastra, because Guru Sadhu Shastra, Paramatma. We need constant verification. Constant verification. Otherwise, we end up, making a big mess. We become confused. Very easy to become confused. Constant verification, Guru Sadhu Shastra, Paramatma. We continue to learn. There's no end to realization. So, okay. I hope it was encouraging.
Yes.
Good. So, yeah, you can go on and see this creation part.
Yeah, I'll read
Then
through.
we have 17 Narada Muni from the teachings. Yeah, again, how does the transcendental spirit soul is different from material body? How does it acquire a body, and for what purpose? This is also a very interesting question. You have said that the Supreme One manifests in universal form that is made of matter. So what is the difference between the body of the Lord and the body of the ordinary living being? You see, this is your question, right? This comes back to your question. What does it mean? Personification. Deva is a personification. What is the difference between the body of the Lord and the body of the ordinary living being? Right?
Yes.
This is it. I'm also eager to hear more about the Supreme Soul who resides in every heart without being touched by the external energy. I have heard your explanations about how the planet, the universe, and their rulers are situated in various parts of the gigantic body of Virat Purusha. However, I do not understand their functional position. Functional position. We come back to your question, right? What is the functional position of the devas? What are the devas doing? What are they? What is their nature? What is their function? What is their activity? This is your question. Then we go on. Then the process of accumulation of the karmic reaction, blah blah. Am I also here? I am also interested in hearing about the elementary principles of creation, the mystic powers of yoga, the subjects of Vedic literature, and the way in which the beings are born and develop. Wow. So that's a big thing. Then Sukadeva was very pleased by the sincerity of Parikshit, who was thirsty with knowledge and asked so many questions. Then it starts here. It is only because of the influence of illusory energy that one comes to believe that he is a material body. The idea of I and mine is simply a misconception that dissipates as soon as we attain transcendental realization. So, if we don't attain the transcendental realization, if we don't dissipate the idea of my ahankara and mamatva, we cannot understand anything. We keep asking, in a fight between Vishnu and Voldemort, who will win? So it's like, okay, yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'm busy. I have other stuff to do. So we need really, whenever you see someone who doesn't demonstrate that they have overcome the ahankara and mamatva, whatever they want to teach is dubious. because they don't have a realization. They don't have the transcendental realization. They don't see anything. They're not rishis. They're not realized souls. They're just repeating whatever they think they heard. This is why they don't take any responsibility for their disciples. Because they're just representatives. They're just repeating what they think they heard. And it's not going to help much. So anyway, we have from page 19 onwards, we have the beginning of creation, blah blah blah, and we have going on, this fundamental of primary creation called Sarga. And going on, the Supreme is the source of cosmic manifestation, gives shelter to the physical manifestation called Adi Bhautika, Adi Dhaivika, Adi Atmika, blah 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 blah. And we come to 20. So, it's not so many pages. It's about 15 pages of stuff. You can go through it at your leisure, and next time we can elaborate more. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you.
We can do today, we can close it here today.
Yeah. We are
Jai
good for
Jagannath.
today.
Thank you very much.
Jai Jagannath. Thank you.